Yeah, what did you put it in this time? There's something about it. No. Take it back. We'll give. Maybe when I take my break. Hey, hello, and welcome to Office Hours, the live component here at the facility where good old Professor Kyle opens up his blast doors and allows you, my humble staff, and any new guests that we have to ask yours truly any nerdy, sciencey, pop culture questions that might be on your/they mind, and we go through a number of topics from the previous week in science and technology, and basically anything that I find interesting, and we go through them. We try to tease apart all the interesting happenings in this universe, when it's not on fire. I see a lot of professors from the facility in the chat already. I see a lot of people who, this is the first stream they are catching live. If this is your first ever stream, hi, I'm Kyle, internet science boy, and market value Thor. I'm a generalist who knows many a thing about various science topics. So during today's stream, we'll be going through a number of scientific topics. We'll also be taking all of your questions. And speaking of questions, if you want me to really see a question, you can also put it in the super chat on YouTube, and I'll do my absolute very best to read as many of those as possible. You have people already, like Jay Arrows, with the $99 donation who says, I played the Basilisk in a game of spades, and the weird thing was the only card they ever played was an island. Darn thing won every hand and took all the bags of holding. Hey Kyle, love the shows. See? Amazing. And all that's going towards simping for science. If you also want to simp for science and help me get up to not evil things, you can go to patreon.com/Kyle Hill, as my security team is putting in the chat right now. Get your lab coat and all that. My security team will also kick you out, because once we start talking about glass brains, things are going to get weird. Before we start, we also have a 50 from Elizabeth Calvert, who says, hey Kyle, love the show. Thank you for writing that like I'm not having a stroke. No tiny human question this week. Wanted to check in with you and see how you are doing. Your shows help me make it through the mess that is 2020. For all the awesomeness that you give us, I worry about you being okay because it's 2020. Yeah, like I'm different. It was weird because we transitioned to, finally, I regained my status as the administrator of the facility at the beginning of the pandemic, and it's been a lot of personal changes, a lot of health changes, but I think we're doing something interesting here. So let's pause the super chats for a second, because I know y'all want to be hearing about them shiny, smooth brains. No, not just what you call someone on the internet, an actual preserved 2,000-year-old brain turned to glass. We'll also be talking about a few other topics today. Of course, we'll be talking about brain glass. We'll be talking about black holes and the recent prize, the Nobel Prize in physics. If you don't know what it's all about, we're going to try to tell you what it's all about. We also, on a more somber note, we have a calculation of the economic cost of COVID-19, just to kind of hammer the point home of what we're doing and how quickly we need to get out of it. Where I'll be also taking one of your comments from the last episode of the facility, which was... And then we'll also be talking about ants. You want ants? This is how you get ants, but for science. Before we get to all that, let's go to our first topic. What you are seeing here is human brains turned into glass. Literally. It's called vitrification, and it doesn't happen very often. Vitrification is the effect where solid tissue becomes glass. Now, when you say glass, it's not like glass as you may be looking at me through. Glass made from silica or something like that. This would be glass more in terms of the structure of the thing. So glass is an amorphous solid, as opposed to a crystalline solid. Something metal, like in my little connectors here, this little metal connector here, it is a lattice work, like little cubes of metal atoms hooked together. But if you look at something like glass, it's amorphous, which means it has no real structure, repeating structure rather. It can break off and separate on sheets on the atomic level, which makes them able to break off into incredibly sharp panes, which is why obsidian, obsidian glass, obsidian knives are so sharp, like just a couple of atoms thick, literally, because the amorphousness of the glassiness allows it to break along an atom's width plane in the material, which is very cool. And also gives it, other material properties, shiny, it's very brittle, etc., etc. But like I said, when you think about glass, you think about silica, you don't think about human tissue. So I wanted to bring back into focus a study. This study was about 8 months old, but it got added to. And this study was the preservation of neurons in a vitrified human brain, a 2,000-year-old brain. Neurons. Like down to the cellular level. When we look at this brain glass, we're not talking about just a globular hunk of glass and it's so amorphous there's nothing left. No, you can identify neuron and central nervous system structures in this material. How is that possible? Well, in 79 AD, or around that time, the city of... I'm going to get this wrong. There's going to be grammar nerds in the chat. Herculaneum was one of the cities around the Vesuvius eruption in AD 79. Now, when Vesuvius erupted, Herculaneum was overcame with pyroclastic flows. Pyroclastic flows are one of the most dangerous things that volcanoes can do. Instead of the slow-flowing lava, instead of the slow and constant rain of ash, a pyroclastic flow is a hundreds and hundreds of degree cloud of gas and dust that races down the side of a volcano at hundreds of miles per hour, sweeping away, burying, and burning everything in its path. So this happened to Herculaneum in AD 79. And when the pyroclastic flows reached it, it was buried beneath 20 meters of pyroclastic flow deposit. Think about that. If you're not with the rest of the planet, if you're an American watching, which you most likely are, we're talking about a 7-story building worth of ash. And it's not just ash, it's also 500 degrees Celsius, which is hot enough to vaporize anything volatile. In chemistry, if you ever worked in a lab, we call these VOCs, volatile organic carbons. When you want to measure the dry weight of a material, you put it in an oven. It's 500 degrees Celsius. It burns everything organic away. So in a matter of moments, an entire city's people were covered in a 6-story building worth of vaporizingly hot ash and dust. What this did was create an effect not seen almost anywhere. And this is vitrification. Sorry, I'm scrolling through the study just to make sure I don't get anything wrong here. And this process to create glass from human tissue is fairly simple, but requires the conditions that we're talking about. Incredibly hot, rapid onset of material. And what that does is rapidly heats and boils human tissue. And I don't mean to make you squeamish, but there's evidence that it was so hot, that the occupants of Herculaneum, their brains boiled into liquid inside of their skulls, and then the pressure exploded those skulls. Quickly lived these events like this are, that liquid lipid and fat and protein of the brain gets so hot so quick it melts, and then it rapidly cools. And if you rapidly cool a substance like this, you can preserve the amorphousness of it. So when you, and this is how you get obsidian too. When you have lava bombs that shoot out of the volcano, they're thousands of degrees Fahrenheit, and then they cool rapidly. That's how you get the volcanic glass. Similar thing happened to this poor person's brain. boiled inside the skull, then rapidly cooled, and their brain became glass. But this isn't all I have to show you about this. They literally had the site where this human passed away. You can see there's not much left. A here is showing the brain glass found where the head and where the skull would be. They also found brain glass on the inside of the skull. And B here is showing you parts of the spine, inside of the spine, parts of the central nervous system. These all preserved. And one way you can this is an aside, but one way you can double check that you're actually looking at what you think you're looking at, they found these fragments attached to skull pieces, but they didn't find them anywhere else at the site. It's only attached to the skull. We know brains can be vitrified. Probably brain. It probably did more than that. I didn't look at all the method sections. Nobody does. So when you look closer, in A here, because of this rapid heating and rapid cooling, you can literally preserve the structure of neurons and the central nervous system. So what you're looking at is the structure of a neuron, axons, dendrites, all that stuff, from a brain that was boiled in a skull 2,000 years ago by a volcano. That's incredible. It's an incredible sentence to say, but it's also incredible because this represents, and this isn't an exaggeration, this photo and the evidence from this one site represents the best evidence, the best preserved evidence of ancient human brains and brain structures in all of archaeology. Let me say that again. In the entire field of digging stuff up out of the ground, this is the best example of ancient brains that we've ever found, ever, in 2,000 years. I think it's absolutely incredible. For a few reasons, of course. If you didn't know that human brains could turn into glass, that's pretty metal. And thinking about, it's morbid, but you don't really think about what a volcanic eruption could do to a city. And it's absolutely horrendous. It does stuff to the body you'd never even think about. But to have a preservation like this, a human fossil unlike any other, I think it's absolutely incredible. But let's see what the chat has to say about it. Stephen Shivers with the 5 says, everybody always asks you science questions, Kyle, but anyone, it's live. Anyone ever ask about how you're doing? Yeah. I'm fine. Chugging along. I would really like the next video. I'd really like the video this week to do some bonkers views, and it has to do with anime, so I'm sure it would. Coggy Machine says glass is metal. No, you funny person. Ha ha ha. Alexander Weber says, when I die, I want my brain to be turned into a ritual knife. I am reporting you to the Witch Police? Gene Sargent with the 10 Canadian, says the picture of the M87 black hole was taken with the Event Horizon telescope. Would it be possible to create an even bigger virtual telescope by using the Earth's path around the sun for parallax? Yeah, well, I mean, to image things this far away and this big, you do need to, a single telescope on the surface of Earth is not going to help. You need to separate it by distance to get different views of it. But I don't know if that specific setup would work. That's outside of my purview. That's more of a Neil deGrasse Tyson kind of thing, I get. Corono XD with the MX50. Don't know what that is, but hey, show. Thanks for recommending The Expanse. It's the only show where inaccurate science has never taken me out of the experience. Say it all the time. Go watch The Expanse. It's the most scientifically accurate show on TV and the best science show, the best sci-fi show since Star Trek The Next Generation. Period. It's better than Firefly, too. Yeah, fight me. Moon with the 100 says, oh, hey, first time catching a live and it's in the middle of the night. I gotta sleep, but I will rewatch tomorrow. you're in Korea, yeah? Well, I actually, I love watching competitive StarCraft 2. I don't play it, I just love watching it because I like StarCraft, but watching the best pros in the world play it is fascinating to me because they're so fast and so smart. It's like hyper nerd chess. And almost 99% of the pros are Korean. And so you say that you got to go to bed. I actually have an alarm for 1 a.m. tonight because that's when the next GSL streams. So if you're awake during that time, you like StarCraft, find me in the chat. I'll be memeing. Luna with the 10 says, first time not lurking in the stream. Hey, thank you so much. Hi, how are you? With gene editing being a topic of debate, how far you reckon we can change our own human biology without being unethical, simping for science? That is a difficult question because the real holy grail of gene editing, so to speak, would be to use something like CRISPR-Cas9 to go into your genome, start changing it such that the genome is passed on to future generations. So right now, when you hear about gene therapy or gene editing techniques, a lot of it is just injecting into your body something to supplement your body's deficiencies. So there could be a genetic disorder or disease caused by the deficiency of some protein, and so you use genetic engineering to get that protein into your body and, in some cases, outright cure the disease. But what's much more ethically dangerous is to go into your genome or the genome of an embryo and alter it in some way, and they will carry that with them until that bloodline runs out. So what's potentially dangerously unethical about that is that you'd be making decisions for potentially generations upon generations of human beings without their consent. I don't know the way through that. There's entire fields of bioethics is an entire field of study, so I do not have the answer to that, but that's why it could be so potentially unethical. I don't know how to get around it. Masood says, hey show, Kyle the Love. Also, Contain Bay 2. I broke the screen in here, and reality is all wrong now. Don't believe what Kevin says. Send help. Kevin is... You're still getting this, right? Okay. He says he has a surprise for me that I have to... It's going to spice up my dark matter coffee. We'll see. Doom for Zombies with the $4.99. Hey, show, love Kyle. Why do we only need a cloth mask as opposed... That's not how you spell any of that. As opposed to a gas mask type mask, hashtag simping for science. Well, this is a very common question. Don't feel bad if you also have this question. The answer is simple, but it's not intuitive. Why does a cloth mask protect you from a virus that is smaller than the pore size on the mask? Well, that, very simply put, is because virus does not... when it's aerosolized, it does not travel through a cough or through a sneeze or through the air on its own. Rather, it hitches a ride on much larger droplets. Those droplets are almost always larger than the pore size of the mask, and so the virus is effectively blocked by even that slightly larger pore size. Yes, a gas mask, N95 mask, are smaller pores and would filter out more, but in the case of the virus, when it's affecting millions and millions of people, the effectiveness in dealing with the droplet size is more than enough to save hundreds of thousands of lives, literally. You can clip that. I think I nailed that. We have my evil inner child with the 10 who says, hey Kyle, live the show. Quick, why can't teeth repair themselves like bones do? Also tell ARIA I said hello. Don't you creep up on my AI. Don't do that. How do you know we're not together? Anyway, why can't teeth repair themselves? Can they not? Is enamel not re-sheathed every so often? I don't know. I actually don't know. I don't know the regeneration habits of teeth. It's the only part of the skeleton you can touch. Dustin Stark with the 20 says, hey Kyle, love the show. Let's pause the super chats for a second so we can get to our second topic. We're already 20 minutes in, and look at me running my mouth. Hey Kyle, love the show. Thank you, Dustin. See, I can say it right. Just wanted to say I wear a mask in 120-degree Fahrenheit boiler rooms for 70 hours a week, and it sucks major brain glass, but I still do it, so all the Karens out there are just wimps. I agree. That's all there is to it. Yeah, that's hard, man. Mammoth with the 50. Hey Kyle, love the show. You are the Bill Nye of this generation, getting kids to want to get into STEM. You humble me. I don't think that's warranted, but I have been described as millennial Bill Nye with depression. So, it's on brand. But no, to be serious, that's one of the... it's incredibly high praise, and thank you. I'm doing my best. This is what I feel. I'm not a spiritual person by any stretch of the imagination, but I think this kind of thing is what I'm supposed to be doing. Because we all know growing a beard is not what I'm supposed to be doing. I mean, look at me. I'm ridiculous. Again, let's pause for just a second. Mike Benavides with the 10. Could you pee on a hot wire hard enough to not get shocked? Or simply can a water stream outpace conductivity or electricity through force? I don't like why you're asking this, but you have it backwards. The harder... Okay, ladies, this might not apply to you as much, but if you wanted to pee on something and get electrocuted, don't. You could die. The harder you pee, the more solid and consistent the stream is going to be, which will give a better path for any electricity. If you're not peeing as hard, any breaks in the stream introduce air gaps, and air is very hard for electricity to break down, so you probably won't get shocked if you have a weak stream. You know what stream isn't weak? This one, baby! Ho! You see how I did that? That's what you're simping for. Transitions like that. Sometimes... It's like my genius can create its own gravity, you know? I stole that from Jeremy Clarkson. That's not my quote. Black holes. There's one behind me now. If I was this close to it, that my body is now implying, I would be aging less than you, which is weird. But why am I showing a black hole? Well, the recent Nobel Prize in Physics involved black holes, both of them, that were sharing a Nobel Prize in Physics, and it's fascinating. So the Nobel Prize in Physics went to Roger Penrose, legendary physicist, and Reinhard Genzel and Andrea Getz from the University of California, Los Angeles. Whoo! UCLA. I don't know why I hooed. I'm not from there. Anyway. But Penrose, for the discovery that black hole formation is a robust prediction of the general theory of relativity, and for the other two, for the discovery of a supermassive compact object at the center of the galaxy. Let's take the second half first. Now, what these two scientists did was rather amazing. They wanted to take better and better images of the center of the Milky Way galaxy. So they had to develop new technology and new techniques to get better and better resolution and data from the very center of our galaxy, where there's all, millions and millions and billions of stars. And once they had better resolution, they were looking at some of these stars, and they were absolutely zipping around the center of the solar system. I mean, the galaxy, rather. And they were going so fast, their speed could not be explainable by what was observed. And that's a big issue in science. What the heck? What's doing that? That's bad. So what they posited, rather, was this speed seems to be caused by something that is smaller than the solar system, but has the mass of 4 million suns. And so they went on to discover that a supermassive black hole, or what would be a black hole, was residing at the center of our galaxy. And then in ensuing years, scientists have speculated that supermassive black holes are at the center of most galaxies. So they won a Nobel Prize in Physics for that. Roger Penrose, years after Einstein himself mused that black holes were only theoretical, Penrose took the same equations from general relativity, and he used it to show that when a large star died, it could collapse in on itself if it had enough mass and create a region of space-time where space and time would become discontinuous. And that at the center of this warping would be a singularity where time stopped. And then all the laws of physics broke down. And by showing this mathematically, which we're not going to go through because it's complicated, by showing this mathematically and proving that general relativity could also explain this, it is considered to be the most robust addition to the theory of general relativity since Einstein formulated it. So that won a Nobel Prize in physics. Now, I don't have a lot else to say about that except one of the diagrams that the science team here put out with these announcements described a black hole in a way that I've never heard it described before, and they sound even cooler now, and I want to share that with you. So I've never seen a black hole diagram. I've seen this, and on the right it's kind of confusing because that's, keep in mind that the y-axis here is a time evolution with time going up. So you start with matter and a star at the bottom, and that evolves over time into a black hole and a singularity with an event horizon, as you can see. So that looks a little weird, but that's because it's an evolution through time. This is a single snapshot. Now, what I've never seen before was a black hole described thusly, where at the event horizon, where the effective surface gravity makes an escape velocity higher or at the speed of light, so not even light can escape, as you know, space and time become discontinuous. Space separates from time. And the way that he described this is so brain-breakingly cool. At the event horizon, time replaces space and points only forward. The flow of time carries everything towards a singularity furthest inside the black hole where density is infinite and where time ends. Oh, how cool is that? Where time replaces space and it only points forward in time. And then at the center, time ends. So if you're looking at these bottom, we've looked at these light cones, so to speak, in a number of episodes that I've been involved with. And light cone shows your present and then all the possible events you could interact with in your past and your future based on the speed of light as drawn out by these cones. The 45-degree angle here is distance over time, and that's the speed of light, so that gives you a cone boundary for where you could possibly be in space-time because you can't travel faster than the speed of light. So at the top here, you're seeing that as an observer gets closer, their light cone gets closer to a black hole. You see right here. Oh! I went past the event horizon. Right here, the very edge of the light cone is now within the black hole's event horizon, which means there's no possible pathway. There's no possible world line that even light could escape. And then at the top here, you see that once you're inside the event horizon, there is no possible configuration of a light cone that takes you outside, which is what this is saying. Time only points inwards. Density becomes infinite, and time stops. If that doesn't blow your mind, honestly, I don't know what will. But if you can think of stuff like that, you win a Nobel Prize and get a lot of money. Paul James with a 10 says, Simp for Science and fellow Wisconsinite. Oh, go Pack go. Looking good this year. My boy Aaron Rodgers. Classic says, I saw you on Mythbusters the other day and about had a heart attack. Yeah, if you don't know, in 2016, I had terrible hair. But I did host the search, Mythbusters The Search, which tried to find the replacement hosts. But I hosted that show when I was in my 20s. It's crazy. I don't know why they let me do that. You could tell that I did my own hair and makeup on that show. That's where I also met Alan Pan, one of my friends. Sports Mag with a 5 says, show love Kyle the Hay. Do you play No Man's Sky? Fun fact, it would take 585 billion years to visit every planet. Hashtag go pack go. Woo! Hashtag Simp for Science. I have played No Man's Sky. I bought it at launch. I thought it was terrible. I played it again afterwards. I was kind of bored. And I know it's much better now, but I haven't gone back to revisit it. I love the idea of procedural generation of planets, though. Jose Baroa with the 10 says, do you think the increasingly rapid expansion of the universe will lead to another Big Bang, recreating in another reality another? What if we're in a singularity? Hashtag Sim for Science. I don't know, man. Honestly, dude, I just don't know. I mean, nobody knows that. You're talking about, like, theoretical beyond theoretical. I caution you, maybe not you specifically, but I do see people with a great interest in physics, which is fine, of course, getting enamored with an idea or theory and then projecting it way outside the scope of that. So, you know, you see this all the time. And again, Jose, I'm not saying you do this, but, you know, for example, when quantum mechanics became like a pop culturally relevant thing, then you have physics, but then you have people asking like, well, what if our brain is just quantum consciousness foam that I could talk to you about in a self-help book? I'm like, whoa. Probability densities and stuff is like that. Between that and Deepak Chopra, there's a lot of daylight there. So I don't know. Let's pause the super chats for a second so we can move on. But yeah, I caution you in taking theories about the end of the universe or Big Crunch and heat death and extending them out past the point that we have any business talking about before we figure other stuff out. You know what I mean? Like, could we interact with another universe? Dog, I don't even know if other universes exist yet, you know? I feel like more professors should talk to students like that. Like, man, I don't know. Calm down. JG with the 10 says, hey, sorry, this is off topic. If you fall from somewhere high, holding onto something significantly heavier and wider, could you reduce or transfer your energy by hopping off at the last second? Yes. But your hop... So I've seen this meme, this poorly drawn meme where, you know, a guy jumps out of a building with a chair, and at the very bottom, he jumps off the chair, and he's fine. This, in physical theory, would work, but in practica, a term that I coined last week, in practica, it wouldn't. Because if you launch something downwards away from you, you are creating upward thrust, and this is exactly what a rocket does. It just throws propellant downwards quickly. That's all rocket science is. Just fiddling with that. So if you threw a chair away from you, or if you were in space and you threw a chair away from you, you would go in the other direction. But in practica, as I said, the speed at which you would have to throw or push or jump off of something that could cancel out your downward momentum is so undoable for human legs, it's impossible. I don't have the math. Just to estimate, you know, like, rocket exhaust is many Mach to lift the rocket into the air, a large multiple of 343 meters per second. So to stop a free fall, where you might be going like 100 miles an hour by the time you hit the ground, with jumping off of something like a chair, you probably have to jump off the chair at some like ridiculous hundreds of miles per hour kind of thing, and the human body just can't do that. So theoretically, yes. In practica, no. Damon with the 10 says, hey, Kyle, Loda Show. After seeing all the political insanity going on in the U.S., I've been thinking that politics has pretty much become religion for many and manipulates much in the same way. Well, you know what I have to say about that? Nothing. So, speaking of catastrophes in the United States, something I wanted to go through quick, where there was a new report in the, let me get this right, New England Journal of Medicine? Where am I? No, it's JAMA. Yeah, there was a new article in JAMA, which is free, and I'll link to it after the video post. But what it was trying to do is tabulate the actual economic cost of the pandemic that we're currently in. And I wanted to go through this because people are talking about, at least in this country, and I think rightfully so, but wait. In this country, people are experiencing a tension between what they want best for public health and what they want best for their personal economy and the economy in general. And that is a valid viewpoint until you have data that says otherwise. So if you wanted to really game out, okay, well, how much should we deal with the virus? How long should we stay locked down versus, versus should we go back? What are the economic gains and losses? Well, now that we have data on this, it seems absolutely clear that by not dealing with the pandemic in a robust and scientifically accurate way, which the United States is not doing, the losses economically are so far beyond the cost of locking down. And I know if you're of the, we should reopen persuasion, I know that sounds sacrilegious to you perhaps, but I got numbers, so listen. So the two halves of this is a loss of people and then a loss of economic opportunity, basically. So how you would go about calculating a total would be, you estimate the number of deaths that would happen from the pandemic. This is in the United States alone. Then you assign an economic value to a human life. And if that sounds callous, it's what economists do every single day. So economists So environmental and health policy, for example, the paper says, a statistical life is assumed to be worth 10 million. With a more conservative estimate of 7 million, the economic cost of premature deaths throughout the next year is estimated to be, and you see this right here, $4.4 trillion. So that's 1,000 billion. $4.4 trillion. And this is, yes, I know what you're thinking. How could one life be worth, $7 million? Well, you think of what they bring in terms of wealth and then what they output in terms of working for 65 years in the economy and blah, 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 blah. You get roughly that number. Trust me. I'm an economist. I'm not. The next part of this calculation that you do is you start calculating the estimated loss for long-term complications for people who have this. So this is the total healthcare costs of people who aren't dying but have long-term cognitive and mental impairment, which we know is a symptom and a result of the diagnosis. And then also people who are impaired, not able to work, have severe respiratory, lung problems, that kind of thing. Mental health conditions. To quote, the proportion of U.S. adults who report symptoms of depression or anxiety has averaged approximately 40% since April. Last year, it was 11%. That is legitimately crazy. That's what? A 400% increase in depression and anxiety statistics since last year. Now, the stigma around mental health has you, I can feel you, has you immediately knee-jerk away like, well, if you're depressed, it doesn't affect the economy. Well, of course it does. I mean, for one, it would easily impact productivity, maybe, sick days that you take, blah, 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 blah. Now, when you add all this up, as you can see, the cost, and I'm quoting here because what they say is incredible. This could possibly be a $16 trillion pandemic in the United States alone. So that's adding up the 7 billion, the 4 billion, the 2 billion, et cetera, et cetera. Now I'm quoting from the paper here just really to hit this home. This is the cost right now. Output losses of this magnitude are immense. The lost output in the Great Recession was only 1/4 of this. The economic loss here is more than twice the total monetary outlay for all the wars the U.S. has fought since September 11th, including those in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Syria combined. By another metric, this cost of the pandemic is approximately the estimate of damages from 50 years of climate change damage. Now, so what can you do with these numbers? How can you show, how do you compare this to the argument that I brought up at the beginning of this topic? Should we reopen? What are the costs and benefits? Well, obviously right now it's a tremendous cost. Costs more than all the wars since 2001 combined. So, one of the writers, Lawrence H. Summers, puts it this way. Okay, so the fact that this number is so high, I'm quoting him, implies that investments in reducing COVID are hugely valuable. We estimate the value of more testing in the United States alone to be at least 30 times the cost. So, the real punchline here is that the more we do now and aggressively to really get a hold of the pandemic in the United States, the more you will eat into this sunk cost. Right now, it's 75% worse than the Great Depression in the 20s. The estimated cost. So right now, the argument, it is so economically valuable to do whatever we can to stem these losses, to tourniquet the bleeding. We're hemorrhaging right now. 200,000 deaths is an incredible amount of people. Doesn't sound like the biggest number in the world, but when you multiply that by $10 million, it's a lot of money. So right now, the pendulum has not yet swung to the other side. The economic cost of doing nothing or doing things poorly is not equal to the cost of doing things carefully and still being safe and mostly locked down. So I just wanted to point that out, because before I read this paper, the scope and the scale of the damages to the country and to the world, it can seem a little away from you, especially, perhaps if you're around my age or, you're decently well off and you have health care and stuff like that. But the real cost here is unprecedented, staggering, absolutely staggering. CT says, it's cool to watch this in VR right now. Don't try to touch me. I can feel it. Jay Taylor says, lucky New Zealand is voting on cannabis legislation right now. A yes vote will work towards fixing our economy. Yeah. Legalizing cannabis will bring in tens of millions of dollars in like the first month. And it happened in Colorado. Amigad Demus says, where can I find this paper? I will post it after the video is live. I will go in and edit. I'll go in and pin a comment at the top with a link to the paper. Just pause the super chats. I know they're going to start coming in a second. We're already at... yeah, I know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But we got to move on. We're already 45 minutes in. We got to get on. Dominic with the 5. Appreciate you in the show. Stay well, everyone. I second and I third that. But we got to get to peer review. So, last episode of the facility, I did a meme episode. Would there be a distance at which a frozen pizza was perfectly cooked from a nuclear blast? You can watch that if you want to know my thoughts on it. But one of the comments that I need to put to rest is from Gilded Bear. It says, so what you're saying, Kyle, I'm not a supervillain, yeah, is that a single slap cannot cook a chicken. So instead, we need to use a series of consecutive normal slaps. Well, first of all, isn't that a One Punch Man move? And second of all, this meme needs to die. I don't know why it's so intuitive that you can hit a chicken a number of times to heat it up to cook it. Okay? there's a balance in practica between hitting something a number of times and hitting something a less number of times with more energy or more momentum. You're slapping it, you're imparting energy to it. Some of that energy is transformed into the deformation of material and then dissipates inside the material as heat. Other components of the energy comes out as sound. Other components are lost. Heat, sound, that kind of thing. So how hard you'd have to... So let's think about it. Let's get down to it. A single slap going... What was the person that calculated? 1,700 miles an hour. That would destroy the chicken. If you... it would obliterate the chicken. Go watch the Mythbusters Rocket Sleds episode. It would obliterate the chicken. So now what do? Okay, well, how about less slaps? We kind of have a rocket equation here. We're like, okay, well, that's probably too hard. But that's not enough slaps now. That's not enough slaps now. So we reach some sort of asymptote, some sort of answer where we're slapping the chicken enough frequently. Don't gift that. To cook it, but we're hitting it light enough such that the chicken is slowly, thoroughly cooked. Now, if you think about this, like this is like a Richard Feynman kind of thought. Now, if you think about this, what's the least amount of force that I could apply to a chicken? Well, yeah, I could start kind of like rubbing it, tapping it. But what if I could just hit it with a single atom? That sounds pretty light. Okay, well, what if I could hit that chicken trillions of times with that single atom? It's like, all right, but you do the math, back of the envelope. A single atom hitting something like the size of a chicken, macro scale, trillion times, is going to do much. So what if I take trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions of atoms and put them all around the chicken and have them all slap the chicken on every possible surface of the chicken that's available and until it's thoroughly cooked with the least amount of force possible? Well, then we are describing an oven. That is what an oven does. An oven uses tiny atoms, air molecules, to slap a chicken with air molecules until it's cooked. We measure temperature as the kinetic energy of particles. So very hot air molecules, O2, nitrogen, all that stuff, very hot air is moving with some kinetic energy, with a lot of kinetic energy. When those particles impact the chicken, just like slapping it, some of that kinetic energy deforms the material ever so slightly, which gets translated into heat inside the material. And if you can do that enough times, over enough time, you can slowly heat the chicken. So you can slap a chicken to cook it if the slappers are atoms and the cooking is oven. Dang it, I thought that was going to come out a lot cooler than... I nailed the... Go back to when I said that's what an oven does. Clip it there, because I didn't... Anyway, Gilded Bear, for making me think about this and for having me kind of stick the landing on it. You are now an honorary member of the facility. Fantastic. I'm jazz snapping. Fantastic. What's that? He doesn't get a plug. Gilded Bear. So usually all the honorary professors get a plaque, but Kevin says I need to... Oh, it's ready? All right, just a second. I gotta take a quick break. I'll be right back. Wait, what is this? I don't know about this, man. I don't like how it's pouring out. You want me to put this right into my coffee? That seems like a bet. All right, I'll do it. It's gonna taste good. Yeah, okay, if it's gonna taste good, then I'll try it. Hey, by the way, Kevin, you're doing a great job. So let's see what the chat has to say. Oh wait, I gotta add my secret ingredient to my coffee. I told you at the beginning we were gonna add something to it. Okay, here we go. You want me to drink this? Oh, just more? Okay, sorry. Yeah. I'm, No joke, though, if I drank this right now, I would literally die on stream. Let's see if that shatters. I don't know how ceramic is going to handle that. We have a $100 donation from Thomas Hadrick, who says, just got all my October bills paid, so wanted to simp for science, baby. He didn't say that. I said it. Also wanted to ask if you had any non-supervillain plans involving Halloween, involving almost 3,000 neodymium magnets for Halloween. In fact, yes. Yes, I do. Will that come out during October? It might. Yeah. I do. I'm just about to get ready to do that build, whatever it may be. And, yeah. I think it's going to be a world first. I mean, it's no Mark Rober, but, you know, I don't have that many ball caps. Adam Frost with the New Zealand 17 says, hey, Professor Kyle. That's not, nope. Thanks for being both informative and interesting. It's a great combo. Hey, I seem to think so. The hair helps. Quick question. What happens to the energy when light destructively interferes? I don't know. I don't know. I honestly don't know. It's great. If anyone knows, has an idea in the chat, let them know. SC with the 7 says, good day, Mr. Hill. I enjoy your educational media content. Thank you, not a robot person. If you're a robot, I'm sorry if I offended you. Breadboard says, hey, Lyle, live the snow. Okay, no. Do not start a thing where people they're not even using the right words. Because my brain, because I'll drink that, and I will just straight up die. I'm not even joking. That would kill me. I knew it was you, Breadboard. I knew it was you. I see you in Doc's chat. I got the black on Vanta Black lab coat, and I'm ready for velocity, science, and magnitude. Yeah. Am I on the right stream? No, you're not. But, feeling good today, baby. Yeah. 5'10". 20, what's a 30-inch vertical leap? I am Vaselined out of my mind, though. 2 fingers in. Mystic Dueler with the 999 says, hey, Kyle, love the show. Thank you. You're a bright spot on an otherwise dark timeline. Aw, that's nice. Are you excited for Monster Hunter Rise? Repeated from last week because you didn't have time. Well, I'm sorry I didn't get to that. Let's pause the super chats for a second because, we're going to run out of time. I enjoyed a little bit of Monster Hunter that I played it, but I'm biased in that I really don't enjoy tedious menuing. And that combined with the fact that the monsters had no health bars, and when I first started playing it, I had no idea each fight was going to take like 35 minutes. I didn't really get into it. But I did identify Matt Mercer's voice. And I was like, oh, hey, look at you. Night Watcher with the 10 says, hey, Kyle, I was wondering if the study took into account the age that people are dying. It's not sure it meant to be better if we opened, was not sure if you meant it would be better if we opened up or not. Oh, no, I don't know. But I believe it was just a general statistical life at between, $4 and $10 million, something like that. Which catches a lot of the variability. Krabby Cranberry with the 10 says, it's Amiga de Moose. And I changed my name so you can say it now. Also simping for science. Thank you, Krabby Cranberry. Thank you. I appreciate that. I took a lot of Amigo de Moose. I took a lot of Spanish in high school, but I'm trying to get back. Ants. That's what we got to finish off with. Ants are smart. And if you want to get ants, that's how you get ants. How do you get ants? Put a lot of sugar in some water. This is really, really cool. So this is a study looking at how ants who have been observed to use tools which is incredible for an insect to do, and signifies some kind of intelligence, be it singular or collective. This is adaptive tool use, and I don't think this has ever been seen in ants before. And when I say adaptive tool use, what this study did, ants adjusting their tool use, what this study did is take the fire ant, and it wanted to see if a feeding strategy for the ants was disrupted, if the ants could adapt and continue that feeding strategy. So they took little bottle caps, because science doesn't need to be fancy all the time. They had some bottle caps. They took some bottle caps and they put sugar water in it. Now, the ants, the ends of the ants' legs are small enough that the surface tension of the water, they can stand on it. And so the ants would go, stand on the surface of the water and drink it and leave. I mean, that's cool. But then what the scientists did was apply a surfactant, like a soap, to the water, eliminating the surface tension or decreasing it by a large amount. Now, there was a real drowning risk for the ants. So if they tried to employ the same strategy, they would go on top of the water and they would drown and die. So if an ant wasn't intelligent in its tool use, they might just all go die, or they might just stop feeding. But here's what the ants did, actually. So on the top, that is a pile of sand. Now, once the surfactant is applied and the ants are no longer able to stand on the surface, what you'll notice over time is that mounds of sand begin to form. What the ants are doing here is putting sand into the bottle caps, and you can see the liquid coming out, into and around the bottle caps. And what that does, by capillary action, it allows the sugar water to flow out into the sand and onto the sand surface where there's no longer a threat of drowning. These ants are building a sand siphon in real time in reaction to a changing feeding environment. That is absolutely incredible. Would you think of that? Sometimes there's animal like studies, like with crows and stuff, where the crow would do something. We're like, I don't think I would have figured that out. But this is absolutely incredible to me. The fact that they know or can reason all of this physics and fluid dynamics out to continue to feed in this way is incredible. And of course, they don't know, quote unquote, know in the same way that you or I know something, or they probably don't. It is more, it's more a hardwired trait. It's probably not a learned trait. It's more a hardwired trait that, millions of years ago, some ants had a genetic mutation and some population of ants started doing stuff like this, and it was selected for. So they may not know what they're doing. Like, hey there, Aunt Gary, we should take, sand might work. I learned that in high school. No, they're not doing that. But they do have enough evolutionary history behind them where they can employ an adaptive task. This is cooler than the black hole thing to me. Okay, maybe not, but it's close. So, just a couple more comments and questions before we call it a day. I'm living on Martian time, so I'm a little bit later than you. Ethan Karp says, hive mind. Kinda, but not really. It's not a distributed consciousness, like the Geth or like the Borg or something like that. They're not all part of a singular consciousness. It's kind of like a wisdom of the crowds kind of thing. Nathaniel Coral says, I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough, and I can't read the rest of the comments. Sorry, I don't know what it says. Eugene Oliveros says, technically, ants are already fighting a huge world war at the moment between super colonies. Yes, I saw that Kurzgesagt video as well. And I recommend it. And Nagman says, what about all the people that died from drinking liquid nitrogen? Yeah, don't drink liquid nitrogen. It expands in your stomach, and it also freezes your stomach. It destroys your stomach, literally, and then you die. Mad Cow says they're building a pyramid. I like to think they're using the sand more of like in a DayZ kind of zombie body sort of way. Alicia Kennedy says, my child's doctor just told me that taking vitamin D can reduce your chances of getting COVID by over 50% based off of a study he has seen. Have you seen anything similar? No, I have not seen anything similar, but that does not mean it's true. I don't know. What you're describing is a prophylactic treatment, something you can do to your body to make you less likely to get something. And I haven't seen that study. But again, I'm not a doctor or I'm not a pediatrician, so I would look into it. But also, see, this is complicated. I'm not a doctor. But something like vitamin D is something that a lot of people are deficient in anyway, by which I mean taking some vitamin D supplementation could be totally harmless. So, it's not the end of the world if you start taking vitamin D. You're not going to die. But I haven't seen verification on that study. It's something you could look into. If you have some medical background or you're just curious, you could search for it, or you could use Google Scholar. Scholar.google.com, I think. And that will search all the available papers in its network, and you could try to find something like that. But I would suggest looking for it. Zarin Maelstrom, Destroyer of the Third Realm, with the 10 says, hey Kyle, finally made it here. Here's a question. Can the human brain truly understand randomness, or would we just keep finding patterns where there are none? Oh, well, we certainly find patterns where there are none. Of course, this is true. I mean, you all know about confirmation bias, about, gambler's fallacy, these kind of things where our brain does not handle randomness well. I think that's why quantum mechanics is so unintuitive. It's why we will pick, faces out of static or see things in the clouds. Pareidolia is the psychological quirk where we see faces everywhere. It's because our brains are looking for all those pieces and be like, face, even if it's not a face. I think we have some intuitive understanding about things that are random, but we search out meaning. It's more, for whatever reason, for the social animals that we are, it's more psychologically comforting that when something terrible happens to you or something amazing happens to you, well, there's two sides of this coin, but when something, this is a proven psychological effect, but we tend to think when something amazing happens to us that we have something to do with it. But when something terrible happens to us, we never have anything to do with it. The classic example, I think Daniel Kahneman, Nobel Prize winner, had a study on this where if you do poorly on a test, the test is bad. But if you do great on a test, you're an amazing student. So I think we understand it. I think it probably goes wrong more often and more detrimentally than we ever think, though. Confirmation bias is everywhere all the time. Music Century Piano 29, like every week, amazing supporter of the facility with the 50, says, keep up the great work, Kyle. Ants are awesome. Yes. Do you have a favorite cosmic event? I pick a starquake. Seismic solar events are incredible. Starquake, it's hard to beat the name. It's hard to beat the name. I like the Roche limit. The distance at which a moon would have to be from a planet to be ripped apart by its tidal forces and form rings. I think that's pretty metal. We're just about done here, so no more super chats. We're going to wrap it up in just a second. Jesus Skywalker. See, now you could have made that Jesus Water Walker if you wanted. He didn't walk on the sky. Well, I guess he did fly at one point. If ants used to... That could have been offensive. I'm sorry. I went to 16 years of private Catholic school. I can say it. It's fine. If ants use tools, does that mean they're in some sort of ant stone age? Well, that implies that they're going to... No, actually, it wouldn't be a stone age. No, you're right. I was going to say... Yes, it's a stone age. Lord help us, Skywalker, when the ants reach the Bronze Age. The little tiny swords and stuff. And finally, we have Rejected Amoeba with the 5. It says, "Hey Kyle, I love the show. I want to say thank you for your content, as well as to say that you and others have inspired me to go back to college for STEM." Rejected, you are now accepted in my heart because I cannot thank you enough. That's very, very high praise, and I consider that kind of thing to be one of the metrics that I am doing my job well. So I wish you the absolute most success. You're only going to get that success if you prepare, if you study, if you take it seriously. But if you do that and you find something you're really passionate about, I know you can do great things. We all have the capacity to do great. It's being prepared to have the opportunity for greatness, right? Because the world is random, the best you can do, being lucky is just being prepared for opportunity, right? So when it comes along, seize it and don't let it go, like an ant with a grain of sand trying to get sugar water. Thank you so much for joining me for this edition of Office Hours. Whew, I feel like I nailed that one. Not gonna lie. I'm glad I didn't die on stream. That would have been bad. What did we talk about today? We talked about ants. We also took one of your comments from the last episode about slapping a chicken. That's what an oven does. We also talked about the absolute catastrophic economic cost of the current pandemic. Yay. We also talked about the Nobel Prize in Physics, went through that a little bit, and then finally, we talked about brain glass and how amazingly, terribly cool it is. If you want to join the facility, if you want to keep this conversation going with me, there are private live streams, there are behind-the-scenes content like photos and videos. You get episodes early, you give me episode ideas, you talk with me in Discord almost every day. Look, I know some of you saying, "Hey, where's Kyle been?" Hey, look, I have a lot of magnets, okay? I have a lot of magnets to take care of. Plus, I'm always lurking. So if you want to talk to me, you can join the facility at patreon.com/KyleHill, and you can get all of that great stuff, and there's also merch and all that stuff. But if not, subscribe to the channel, and I promise to bring you... I'll try. I promise to bring you at least something that I find really interesting, and that I hope you find interesting each and every week. Only a couple more weeks until something's gonna happen. So until then, and then especially like right after then, let's try to be understanding of each other, nice to each other. Because if your brain hasn't been turned into glass yet, this is all we got.